Fred here, welcome back to the Gear Obsession channel. In this episode, I thought I'd share some gun cleaning tips, so stay tuned. First, let's start out with the most important tip, and that is to make sure that the weapon is clear. We want to be safe. If you don't follow this tip, really, potentially all the other tips I'm about to tell you ain't gonna matter. So, make sure that we are safe visually and tactily we know we are definitely empty. By the way, when you're sticking your finger in that chamber like that, you better make sure you have this locked back good, because if this were to slip, you can injure or possibly lose a finger. So there's another safety tip. Just so you know, this gun is ready to defend the house with some Federal Hydro-Shoks. So first cleaning tip I want to talk about is specifically to the barrel. Now the first thing that we want to do is to get some solvent into the barrel so it can start eating away whatever you were shooting through it. Now my favorite, and a lot of other folks' favorite here on the tubes, is Hoppe's number 9. I love this stuff. It is good. It removes leading and metal fouling. Now this stuff smells pretty good. That's why I like it. But even though it smells good, make sure you're using it in a well-ventilated area. But it does a very good job. Now, this is not a cleaner / lubricant. This is strictly cleaner. So, make sure that you have a lubricant handy. Now, if you have some serious copper fouling going on, like you really just were shooting a lot of ammo, and you can see some copper in there, you might have to step it up with something a little more powerful. And I had come across this. There is a Hoppe's number 9 that is a copper solvent. And this is stronger than this stuff. And I could tell you that when I took a whiff of this, it reeks of ammonia. So this stuff is really strong, and this is specific for copper fouling. So you can step it up and use this stuff. But it also takes care of lead and powder, like the other one does too. But this is sort of like, I would consider this like a stronger version of the other Hoppe's number 9. I may be incorrect, that's just my opinion right now. Now, we want to get some solvent in here. Now there's many different ways of doing it. I'm showing you specifically my tips. Now hopefully you got a good cleaning rod. I like this one. It's made by ProShot. And you can see that the rod sort of spins, or the handle spins. So as you're moving, you know, this was a brush on the end of this, and it's turning as it's going, you know, into the rifling of the barrel. It'll turn. You don't have to allow it to slip in your hand. It just rotates. But it's really, really good quality. The metal has very, very tiny pores, so it doesn't collect dirt like maybe a plastic rod would, or those cheap brass ones. Get yourself a really good cleaning rod. I really do highly recommend this ProShot. No, they're not giving me any money to pitch their product. Now, you want to go ahead and get a good big old patch in this case, because this is 9mm. And you go ahead and put some of your solvent on it, and then you're going to just punch this back and through just to get that solvent into the barrel. Now, one thing I recommend as you're moving this in and out, all you're doing is soaking everything, you know, in here. What I like to do when I'm getting near the end is to really make sure I get it packed in there really good into the rifling. Is I'll bring it about halfway in and sort of twist it so it gets bunched up, and that applies some extra pressure into the rifling inside the barrel. So I sort of like to, again, let it come out a little bit and then pull back so it bunches, and that makes it a tighter fit as you're pulling it back and getting that cleaner into every nook and cranny in there. Also, on the chamber side, you want to make sure you're getting right above the lip where the rifling starts. You know, right in there really good. And you let it sit and do some work for a couple of minutes. You know, read whatever product they might have a recommended time to let it sit. So once your cleaner has, or solvent had some time to work, you would go ahead and, you know, change out your little patch attachment to a brush. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use a nylon brush. And, you know, lots of times I only use a nylon brush on this. I use the minimum amount of abrasive to get whatever I have going on out of the barrel. And if I was just doing some light shooting, probably a nylon brush will do. But let's say this is a brass brush. And I'll tell you, I also never recommend a steel brush, because a steel brush can damage the barrel if you use it incorrectly. When you're putting a brush through it, when you want to start loosening up all the dirt, when you start putting it in, especially with a steel brush and a brass brush too, do not change direction inside the barrel. You know, finish going through the way that you started. Now obviously I can't go all the way through, but do not change direction midway. And there's two reasons why you don't want to do that. Number one, and the cheapest reason why you wouldn't, is because your brush, it'll tear up your brush, because your bristles, you know, they're all sort of folding back as you're moving forward, and if you change direction, you're going to have to make those bristles sort of move in the other direction, and since they're being held captive by the barrel, they're going to have to bend in order to get the direction changed. So that is going to tear up your brush, any brush, especially your brass ones and your steel ones. The other reason is because as you're changing the directions inside the barrel, it's making these ends of these bristles push really hard out in one place inside the barrel. So what that's doing is it's making these edges here really impregnate the inside of your barrel with dirt. It's really pushing it in. And in the case of maybe steel, and maybe even some brass ones and some cheaper barrels, it can actually damage the inside of your barrel. So just save yourself some heartache, and do not change direction inside your barrel. Okay, so what I usually do is, a lot of people like to go only in one direction, and I do eventually do that, but at the beginning, right after I let the solvent work, what I'll do is I'll just move the brush back and forth in here, just to get everything loosened up. I'm not trying to move the dirt in one direction yet. I'm really just trying to you know, get everything loosened up out of the rifling, and outside that, where the chamber ends and your rifling begins, there's a lip in there. So you really just want to work that out, loosen it all up. So now that you loosened up the dirt really good, now you want to start wiping it out. So you're going to get a patch, and you're going to punch it through there. And now I want to try to get the dirt to move out this way. Now I can't keep on going in one direction unless I were to take this off and then take this out. And a lot of people like to go from the chamber out the muzzle and just keep on going in one direction. So they would put this rod through, put the patch in, and then pull it. And then put the rod back in, put another patch in, and pull it through. And you can keep on doing that. I don't do that because I guess I'm too lazy. It's too much work. What I do personally is I'll put this up in there. It's going to gather a whole bunch of dirt, and then I do that twisty thing, so I get it really, you know, a lot of pressure inside to pull it, so it's going to be hard to pull, and then pull out, and it's going to, you know, get a lot of dirt. And I might like rotate the patch a little bit, or change the patch the first couple of times because it's really dirty. And then I'll do the same thing. I'll sort of punch it through, bunch it up really good, and pull it through. Now this is my method. There's other ways you could do this. These Pro Shop cleaning rods come with all kinds of tools, and they got jags that you could just continually just push patches with a jag through in one direction if you like. It's all personal preference, but this is the way that I do it. But please, there's a million ways to do one thing, and as long as the end result is getting a very clean barrel at the end without damaging it, that's what you want to accomplish. That's your goal. Now, it's also good to have some sort of bore light so you could examine your work. In this case, a regular flashlight will work, but you can see that it's going to make it so bright you can't see. So what I do is I sort of back it out until I can dim it with my hand here, and sort of look a little bit at an angle, and you could sort of spin it around and make sure it's clean. If it's not clean, run some more patches through. Now, if this gun is going to sit around a very long time, if I'm not going right out to the range, I want to get a very, very, very fine coat of a preservative into there. I don't want to put it on thick because this is going to be, this is one of my Ready Home Defense guns, which, it's going to sit around being unused here in the house. But, I want to get a very thin coat where, I can still shoot through it and not worry about a round getting stuck in there. So I want to put a extremely, extremely fine coat just to do a little protection. So I got some Break Free LP. This is not CLP. This doesn't have the cleaner portion. It's just lubricant. And it does a pretty good job. And if you notice, this has like a little tubey thing. But you see this rubber thing that came with this? I put this on here so I wouldn't lose the little straw. If you're interested in one of these things, they're called Hold Its. I found this at Lowe's. They're really cool. You could use them on your W10, W40 kind of stuff. Really cool stuff. And put my little tube here. And I'm going to put a very, very, very light coat of lubricant on here. Actually, you know what? In this case, I don't even think I need the tube. I could just sort of just get just a drop, because you don't want to foul that barrel up with oil and then, shoot around through it and end up getting it stuck. And I'm just going to run it very lightly through there, just to get a little protectant. Again, I do that little backy up bunch thing, and make sure I'm getting a nice light coat to protect for long-term storage. If it's really, really long-term storage, you could put a thicker coat in there, but you have to clean it out before you shoot it, or you run the risk of doing some damage when you do finally shoot it. Okay, let's move on to the slide. I'll show you some of my tricks here. You always got to worry about cleaning these rails. Now, I'm not going to clean these because I already have some gun grease in there that I don't want to disturb. But when cleaning it, one of the neat tricks is one of these pipe cleaners, where I sort of bend it like that. And I'll have some cleaner, or I would have already applied some cleaner. And then I sort of run this down into the rail and then move it back and forth. These pipe cleaners fit right into that rail really nicely. And just sort of whoosh, 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 right in there. Before I was doing with the pipe cleaner, I was having to take a patch and sort of folding it, and then trying to, you all probably do this, try to get it down in there and get all that out. But before you do that, other ways to get in there, of course, is with a good brush when you're cleaning. So it's good to have some brushes. You could use an old toothbrush kind of thing. You could buy some of these even specialized smaller brushes to get into those rails. This is a stiffer brush, nylon brush, to get in there. Really works good. And that's how you clean the rails. And then, of course, after you're done cleaning those rails, you want to go ahead and get a lubricant in there, so when you put it together, your gun will function properly. Now, another place which could be neglected by some folks, I'll get the light in here, is your breech face right here, lack of a better term. And I'm going to go ahead and grab a flashlight so you can see a little bit better. And you can see that breech face right there. And I'm going to show you a neat trick that I like to use. There's lots of tools out there. One of them are these like plastic picks, and that's really, really bright. There we go. You want to make sure that you get, all these edges in that breech face clean. Besides using a brush to brush and clean it with a solvent, and when you do have a wet brush with a solvent, when you're cleaning it, have it face I'm blinding you. Have it face down, and you could have a brush that's maybe soaked with some lubricant, and move it up and down on the breech face. And the reason why you have it face down is so you don't have a whole bunch of solvent going down into your into the channel where your firing pin comes out, because you don't want a whole bunch of crap getting down in there, or you're going to have to really start taking apart your gun to get it all out. So once you do that and you let the solvent sort of work on the breech face, you want to make sure that you get all the carbon that's sort of stuck in this edge here out. Also pay very close attention to underneath your extractor right here, and you could see it right there. So you want like a pick of some sort to get in there and make sure that you get it all out. Now you could use, again, a plastic pick just like this. You could use a little brush, metal brush like this, to get in there really good. And another thing I like to use sometimes are these skewers that you can get in any store. If you don't have any, if you can't find any of these plastic picks anywhere, these skewers work really, really good. So if you have any tight corners or spaces in there, you can go ahead and get in there with the pick and sort of, work in those corners really good. And these are good because what happens is the dirt gets stuck on into the wood here, so you sort of get it out. It's actually taking it out. It's not just moving it, it's actually also accumulates on the tip there. So sort of just move that around in the edges, and you might have, depending on your gun, different really, really tight spots somewhere where these little wood skewers work very good. You could, while you're cleaning your slide rails here, you could run the wood skewer up and down into the edges, into the corners of those slots, and you'll see a lot of dirt there. You'll think you get it clean. You could use all these other methods when you're done. Run one of these skewers through there, and you'll still see that tip get dirty. So I love these things. Now, if you don't want a super point and you want something a little wider for a different area, you could get a knife and cut this at an angle, and you could make sort of like a screwdriver shape, flat shape right there to sort of work with. Also, don't neglect your frame. You have all kinds of nooks and crannies in here where you want to get everything clean, and when you're done, you want to make sure you lubricate your rail lugs or rails or whatever you have here on the frame. It's always good to get some there. I like to use gun grease in those spots. Also, a lot of you like Glocks and other firearms with a more conventional type of action will have a lug down in here where the barrel locks on into. You would lubricate that. This particular gun is a Beretta PX4, and it has a rotating barrel design. And here, I'll put this back together so you can sort of see how that works. Get some light down here for you. PX4 is pretty unique. It's a very soft gun as far as recoil and shooting. You can see I got quite a bit of grease here on this little lug right here. And you got to get it into the groove on the barrel. So I'll go ahead and do that. Oops. This stuff never goes smooth on camera. I could do this stuff with my eyes closed usually. There we go. I used to practice my 1911 blindfolded. There we go. You can see that barrel rotate as it's coming back. It's pretty cool. Now, after you put it all together, you want to make sure you function check it. Make sure you have no ammo in it. But make sure that it goes off there. Then also make sure that your safety works. Now, this is a safety slash decocker, which is why it did what it did. Some guns, when I fire, if you don't have the magazine, if they have a magazine safety. So keep that in mind. Know your weapon. Read the instructions for the love of Pete. So if this is going to lay around for a long time, it's good just to coat everything with a thin coat of silicone. You get these silicone cloths. They cost a couple of bucks, and these things eventually sort of dry out, and then you have to spend another couple of bucks to get another one because there's just no more silicone left in it. Some of you like rusty rags; those are great. What you could do if you want to sort of reconstitute your rag without buying another one is you could get some of the silicone spray, which cost a couple of dollars for a can, and this thing will last forever if all you use it is to reimpregnate these cloths. And just give it a light spritz there, and it's just like new now. Literally, it's like brand new. So you got all kinds of nice silicone there. You can see how much is coming off there. And you put a light coat on there on everything. And that protects it. And speaking of protection, I happen to have the Plate of Truth here that's been outside for quite a few months. And what I did was, because there was so much dirt and crap on it, I went ahead and wiped it off. For those of you who follow my channel, I know some of you have been asking about this, and the end result is that all the lubricants that I used on here worked well, including Mobil 1. So Mobil 1 worked just as good as all the other lubricant protectors. The only one that didn't seem to hold up pretty good was Militech. Militech has some traces of rust here. Now this here, number 8, is the silicone spray. But again, of course, silicone protector is not going to work as good as a thin coat of oil of some sort. And of course, this was a cleaner as an experiment. I don't even want to say what cleaner it is. If you want to know, just go back. But I just wanted to show you, if you left a solvent or a cleaner on your gun, you could actually speed up the rusting process. It actually made these really big blotchy rust spots, which it would have probably rusted like this. Instead it rusted like that. Really weird. So don't put a solvent and leave it in your gun for a couple of months, because you'll end up probably speeding up the rust process. Let's start to wrap things up. Don't forget your magazine. Now, these things get pretty dirty, and usually the most likely cause of failure for a semi-automatic is the magazines. So you want to make sure that you clean them. So make sure you get in there, clean the follower and the lips, and make sure inspect the lips, make sure they're not damaged in any way. Usually these are very easy to take apart. On the base plate, you usually have a little hole there, and what you do is you just sort of stick something in there to push the push it in. So you could usually pop this faceplate off slider or whatever, and then carefully, because it's spring loaded, take out your follower and spring in there, and then go ahead and maybe jam a couple of pieces of maybe with a little bit of solvent, maybe a little hoppies, sort of jam that in there and pull it through, or poke it through with a stick or a skewer or something, and just run it through so it just gets that carbon out from the inside, because carbon can get into your magazines. And then take another towel with some extremely a light amount of lubricant of some sort, and run that through just to protect the inside. But it has to be extremely light. I can't stress enough, light amount. You don't want to gunk things up. You get a lot of oil in there, it'll start accumulating dirt, and then it could cause you problems when you finally need to fire it. So now I'm going to go ahead and get my gun ready to make my house safe. And again, it's treated as loaded whether it's loaded or not. So keep your booger hook off the bang switch. There's a popular gun term on a lot of the podcasts I listen to. Good. Another product that I'll use sometimes are Q-tips. Sometimes Q-tips could get down into those tight spaces. Unfortunately, with Q-tips, they can leave a lot of little cotton, stuck in the stuff. So if you use these, they're not the best thing to use. That's why I sort of prefer the pipe cleaners. There's different kinds of pipe cleaners. You want to get, if you can, the kind that are cotton, because those will grab the dirt. They got some that are polyester that really just sort of push dirt around. So you want to try to get real pipe cleaners, not the art store type, because those are usually a polyester material that just sort of pushes dirt and doesn't grab and absorb it. This little shape right here, you can get down into those slide rails and everything, and I mean it really works perfect to cleaning and also to apply lubricant if you don't want to use grease. So I hope this helped. These are just my personal tips. I don't care what anybody tells you. There is no one way to clean a gun, and every gun is different because the internals are different. So it's different with each and every firearm that you own or anything that you're cleaning, plus your personal preferences and what cleaners. I know everybody has their favorite solvents. Everybody has their favorite oils. According to my Plate of Truth, they all did pretty well, except for Militech for some reason. But it's not a controlled environment, so it's not an official test. It's just one result. It could be, I don't know if it could be different if I did it again, and sometime in the future I probably will. I think the Firearms channel, the 1911 channel, I think it is, actually did a very good test of solvents in a controlled environment, the way you're supposed to do it. You might want to hop over to that channel and take a look at that test. It's really cool, very well professionally done, and I highly recommend it. So there's a shout out for the 1911 channel. Check him out. Most of you who watch my channel probably know his channel, and I'll provide the link below so you can check it out. So thank you very much for joining me here at the Gear Obsession channel. I really appreciate every friend, viewer, subscriber, and you. See ya!